Ever wondered how Rome's army became the unstoppable war machine of the ancient world? Meet Gaius Marius, the man who changed everything. Let's break down his game-changing military reforms. 1. Recruitment revolution. Before, only land-owning citizens could serve. 2. Standardized weapons and training. Hardcore training made soldiers disciplined and deadly. 3. Cohort system. New cohorts for 180 men each, and legions faster and more flexible. 4. Soldiers carry their own gear. No more slaves carrying equipment, earning them the nickname Marius Mules. 5. Land and citizenship for veterans. Retired soldiers got land and citizenship, creating fierce loyalty to generals, leading to civil wars and the fall of the Republic. In 91 BC, Rome's Italian allies, who had fought in its armies 4 years, demanded citizenship. When Rome refused, the social war erupted. Led by Rome's longtime rivals, the Samnites, the rebels even formed their own state, minting coins and fighting for independence. The Romans, under Sulla's command, launched a surprise attack on the Italian forces. The Italian army was overwhelmed, suffering massive losses. The final major battle of the social war was the siege of Nola, 88 BC. Nola, a key rebel stronghold in Campania, had resisted Roman attacks 4 years. The Roman general Lucius Cornelius Sulla led the final assault, forcing the last rebel forces to surrender. Ironically, despite Rome's victory, the Italians still won their main demand, Roman citizenship, changing the Republic forever. Gaius Gracchus, 154 BCE to 121 BCE, was a Roman politician and reformer. He was the younger brother of Tiberius Gracchus and continued his brother's populist policies after his assassination in 133 BCE. Gaius was elected tribune of the plebs in 123 BCE and re-elected in 122 BCE. He introduced extensive reforms, including grain subsidies, land redistribution, and judicial changes to curb senatorial power. His attempt to grant Roman citizenship to Italian allies led to political opposition. In 121 BCE, amid growing unrest, the Senate passed the Senatus Consulta Multimum, declaring him an enemy of the state. He fled and, facing capture, ordered his servant to kill him. His death marked the end of the Gracchian reforms and intensified the Republic's social conflicts.
In 88 BCE, Rome was in chaos. The Senate had given command of the war against Mithridates to Lucius Cornelius Sulla, but his old rival Gaius Marius had other plans. Marius used his political allies to annul Sulla's command and take control of the army himself, but Sulla wasn't about to step aside. Instead, Sulla did the unthinkable. He marched his legions on Rome, the first time a Roman general had ever turned his army against the city. Inside of Rome, Marius assembled an army of slaves and gladiators. However, they stood no chance against trained legionnaires, and after brutal street fighting, Sulla claimed victory. Marius and his supporters fled to Africa to gather his own forces as Sulla seized power, marking the beginning of Rome's first great civil war. In 87 BCE, Rome was in crisis. While Lucius Cornelius Sulla was in Greece fighting Mithridates VI of Pontus, his rival Gaius Marius saw an opportunity. After his victory in the Jugurthine War, Marius had a groundswell of veterans and sympathizers willing to join his cause. Returning from exile in Africa, allied with the consul Lucius Cornelius Cinna. Together they marched on Rome, gathering support from disenfranchised Italians and ex-soldiers. With Sulla far away, there was little resistance. Marius and Cinna seized control of the city and began purging Sulla's supporters. Senators, equestrians, and nobles were executed without trial, among them Sulla's close allies. In 86 BCE, Marius became consul for the 7th time, but he died just days later, likely from natural causes. Cinna remained in power, but Rome's future was far from stable. Meanwhile, Sulla was winning victories against Mithridates, securing Roman control over the east. But with refugees flooding into his camp from Rome, pressure grew to confront the populari threat once and for all. I bet you didn't know that the most powerful man in Rome just up and retired one day. In 83 BCE, after defeating Mithridates, Lucius Cornelius Sulla marched back to Italy with his battle-hardened army. Confronting the remnants of the Marian faction led by Cinna and Carbo, Sulla faced fierce opposition. Cinna's desperate push led to his own men revolting and executing him, but the struggle wasn't over. Sulla's forces clashed with the Marian faction, igniting a brutal civil war. In 82 BCE, at the Battle of the Colline Gate, Sulla crushed his enemies and seized Rome. Declaring himself dictator in perpetuity, he unleashed proscriptions, executing thousands of Marian sympathizers. But even in this chaos, a young Julius Caesar managed to avoid the purge. Many assumed Sulla would rule as a tyrant for life, but in 79 BCE, to everyone's shock, he resigned and retired away from Rome, a man of principle until the end. Marcus Licinius Crassus, 115 BC to 53 BC, best known for being the richest man in Rome, he was a key figure in the first triumvirate. Born into a wealthy family, Crassus fled to Hispania during Rome's civil war. In 83 BC, he returned to join Sulla's march on Rome, raising a private army and proving his worth in battle. Sulla rewarded Crassus with seized properties, skyrocketing his wealth. Crassus's opportunism shone when he created Rome's first fire brigade, buying burning buildings cheap, then extinguishing the flames. In 71 BC, he crushed Spartacus's slave revolt, crucifying 6,000 rebels. But Crassus sought more. In 53 BC, he invaded Parthia, ignoring advice and leading 40,000 men into the desert. At Carrhae, Parthian cavalry annihilated his forces, killing 20,000 Roman. Crassus was captured, and legend says executed with molten gold poured down his throat. His death shattered the first triumvirate, setting Rome on a path to civil war. Greed brought Crassus fortune, but also ruin. The Third Servile War from 73 to 71 BC was the largest and most famous slave rebellion in Roman history, led by Spartacus, a Thracian gladiator. It exposed weaknesses in Rome's military and social structure, leading to brutal repression and a legacy of resistance. Likely born in Thrace, possibly as a former soldier, he was captured and sold into slavery, trained as a gladiator in Capua at the school of Lentulus Batiatus. Around 70 gladiators broke out, arming themselves with kitchen knives and makeshift weapons. They raided a wagon of gladiator weapons and fled to Mount Vesuvius. Spartacus and two other leaders, Crixus, a Gaul, and Oenomaus, organized the escapees into a fighting force. Rome underestimated the rebellion and sent 3,000 militia under Gaius Claudius Glaber. The rebels ambushed Glaber's troops, killing them, causing more escaped slaves, rural poor and discontented people to join the rebellion. Spartacus's forces raided towns and Roman estates, freeing more slaves, leading their numbers to swell to 30,000 to 40,000. They trained as an organized army, using stolen Roman weapons and tactics. By 72 BCE, the rebels had over 70,000 fighters, but internal divisions emerged. Spartacus wanted to march north to escape into Gaul or Thrace, while Crixus and his followers wanted to stay and continue raiding Italy. The rebels split. Crixus stayed in southern Italy with 20,000 Gauls and Germans. The consuls Lucius Gellius and Gnaeus Cornelius Lentulus Clodianus attacked Crixus near Mount Garganus, killing him and most of his forces. Spartacus avenged Crixus by defeating the Roman consular armies, killing thousands. He then marched north, defeating another proconsular army. After repeated Roman failures, the Senate appointed Crassus, Rome's wealthiest man, to end the revolt. He raised 6 legions, over 40,000 soldiers, and imposed harsh discipline, including decimation, executing every 10th soldier in cowardly units. Crassus forced Spartacus south and trapped him in Calabria, southern Italy, by building a massive trench and fortifications. Spartacus offered peace, but Crassus refused. The Salaris River in 71 BC was the final battle of the war. Spartacus broke through Crassus's lines in a desperate charge, but was forced back into a final stand near the Salaris River. The battle was a slaughter, 60,000 rebels killed, with Spartacus possibly dying in combat. His body was never found. The remaining 6,000 survivors were captured and crucified along the Appian Way, stretching from Capua to Rome. Pompey's war in the east against Mithridates VI of Pontus, from 66 to 63 BCE, was the final phase of the Third Mithridatic War, which lasted from 73 to 63 BCE. This campaign was part of Rome's efforts to eliminate Mithridates, who had resisted Roman control in Asia Minor for decades. The Third Mithridatic War began in 73 BCE, when Lucullus, a Roman general, launched a campaign against Mithridates, but failed to decisively defeat him. Lucullus lost political support in Rome due to mutinies and political opposition, which led to his recall. The Roman Senate, under pressure from Gaius Manilius's law, known as Lex Manilia, and with the support of Cicero and Julius Caesar, transferred command of the war to Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, also known as Pompey. Pompey reorganized the Roman forces and pursued Mithridates into Pontus, which is modern northern Turkey. In a decisive battle near Nicomedia, Pompey crushed Mithridates' forces. Mithridates fled to Crimea, the Bosporan kingdom, abandoning Asia Minor to Rome. Tigranes the Great, king of Armenia and Mithridates' ally, had already been weakened by Lucullus. Rather than engaging in a costly war, Pompey forced Tigranes to submit diplomatically, recognizing Roman authority. Armenia became a Roman client state, further solidifying Roman control in the east. This campaign marked Rome's dominance in the eastern Mediterranean, shaping Roman politics and leading to conflicts between Pompey and Caesar.